Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarai.
Amen.
Okay, good morning, good Erev Shabbos to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our journey through Likutei Moharan in Torah Chof Gimmel. Today's class is generously sponsored by Rebbe Klein, Le'ilui Nishmas' parents, Rebbe Bariindel, Bas Tzvi Simcha, and Yaakov and Yeshayahu, the Neshama should have an aliyah in the schus of our learning this morning together. B'ezras Hashem. So, let's jump back in. Yesterday we looked at Rebbe Nachman's interpretation of the Gemara in Bechoros Daf Ches Amud Beis of the Sabed Be'atuna, and understanding that the whole back and forth about the mule and about the mule being born with a piska bitzavara with a note right hanging on the neck, and it is a promissory note. Promissory note is the IOU. So Baruch Hashem, we confirmed that. That was all speaking about taavas mamon and avodah zara. That was the mila de chadiva. That was the inyan of the kadnaisa. In Hebrew is pirda is pirud. That's the world of separation. That's a world that doesn't lo avad perin, right? That chadnaisa miyalda, a mule doesn't give birth. That world of pirud doesn't give birth. It's not able to be moiled, the world that all of us are longing for, that all of us are hoping for and yearning for. And we learned about this further exchange with regard to the salt, because we need melach bris olam, right? Because the inyan of the tzaddik and the tzaddik's teachings is able to guide a person into tikkunei bris, out of taavas mamon, and you need melach for that. Melach mamon chaser. When a person has the bris melach olam, so then mamon chaser, the taavas mamon, is able to go away. So then we had a conversation about what if a person is holding in the space of tikkunei bris, and they're in the space of tikkunei bris, right? Melach, but kisaria. Right, so what happens when melach spoils, meaning even a person on that level falls into taavas mamon? We said, well, really, there's a next level up, which is going to be looking at the shorish, being able to be mistakel at the shorish, at the spiritual root of what money is. We spoke about how value gets abstracted up until the point where it's actually not even physical, money value that we're looking for. We're looking for spiritual value. We're looking for connection. We're looking for meaning. We're looking to really connect to the source of all value and the source of all worth, and that's where a person's going to be able to be b'simcha. That's the ezuhu ashir asameach b'chalkai. That's ultimately what we're looking for. We're looking for the bechina of Yaakov Avinu, going back all the way to the beginning and throughout the whole sefer. We've been learning about Yaakov Avinu consciousness, which is the concept of yeshli kol, right? Yaakov Avinu says, I have everything, right? Eisav says, Yeshli Rav. Eisav is always looking for more. Yaakov Avinu might not, he doesn't mamish have everything. No, which human being has everything? But Yaakov Avinu is living with that consciousness of Ezu Ashir Hasameach Bechelka. He only has a chelik, but to him, his chelik is everything there is. Hillel, Emani Kan, Hakol Kan. Hillel is Rosh Hashanah, Haray for the Shvurei Lev. Hillel himself is a bechina of living in the brokenness of this world. But Hillel, connected to the Yaakov Avinu consciousness, is able to say, Emani Kan, all the while that I have what I'm supposed to have, Hakol Kan. Right? That's the bechina of Yaakov Avinu. Yesh li kol. Right? Yesh li kol. That's and Yeshli Kol is Rosh Hashanah Kli Kayin Levi Yisrael, right? It's the collectivity of what it means to be a Jew. Is to have this vessel, to know that what does it mean that I have everything? I don't have everything, but whatever I have is being given to me by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I have a Kli, right? That's my Kli. I don't have to have anybody else's Kli. Yaakov Shalom Klein has a Kli. Everybody else has their own Kli. And Memela, whatever falls into that kli, whatever fragment I have of whatever my slice of experience. There used to be maybe still is a pizza store in Chicago called Slice of Life. Whatever slice of life I have, right? Not pizza slice, but whatever little slice. That's it. That's it, right? Emani kan, hakol kan, yeshli kol, Yaakov Avinu's consciousness, right? In contradistinction to the consciousness of Eisav, going back to Torah Aleph, which maybe the rest of Likutei is just a commentary on that very first teaching, right? Of Yaakov and Eisav, going back to the very beginning, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. What kind of life do we want to live? Malchus to Kedusha, Malchus to Sitra Achra. So that's the ultimate goal. But then we said, but you can only get to that goal if a person is already mitakin the bris. So that was the question. If a person is in a realm of period, how can they look toward the shilya? Shilya was the birth sac. That was a reference to the root, to the source. Can't do that. So then the question was, Milcha Misaria? Okay, but then the question doesn't begin. Because once a person reached Tikkunei Shmir Sabris, so then there's no question in the first place. They're already over taavas mamon, and therefore you don't have a problem. Okay, so we continue from there. That's what we learned yesterday. Anshe damim umirma layechsi yimeim. The pasuk in Tehillim, David HaMelech says, Anshe damim umirma, right, men of blood, my enemies, the wicked ones, layechsi yimeim. They shouldn't even reach half their days. Says the Heilige Rebbe Schusia Ganaleinu, Hainu mishu bal machloikes, neufel taavas mamon. A person is a bal machloikes, like these anshe damim, these people who were battling with David HaMelech. Neufel taavas mamon. So we learned, if you go earlier, just turn the page back, right? So we learned over here at the top of Lamed Hey, the Rebbe just snuck it in a little bit, based on the pasuk Vayigarish miponecha eirev, right? Vayomer hashmeid, is that those who come against the tzaddik are going to be megarish mi panecha, right? Those who are driven away from the aspect of panim de kedusha, vayomer hashmeid, they get sent into the bechina of a zara, which is taavas mamon. Let's just read that line over there on the bottom of Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, at the very, very bottom of the first column. Ki kol yisrael nekram tzadikim al shem ha'bris. So b'shvil zeh, kishemegarish mi'pneim de kedusha sa'ayev, hu ma'apalei sama'ayvim b'fanim d'sitracha anu hashmei nimsa. Right, at the top of the column. Kol tzadik g'tzadik, k'shakadosh baruch hu writes of the garish ayvim shal ha'tzadik. Every tzaddik, when there's people who are fighting against them, Rebbe Nachman had told us earlier, hu ma'apalei sa'ayev b'taavas mamon, Hashem casts the enemy into taavas mamon. So turn back to where we are now. It's just a reference to that part of the Torah that we had learned in passing. Says the Rebbe, that's what you see. A person is a bal machlokes, will be neufel taavas mamon. V'yamav kalim b'redifa achar mosares, and his days will waste away in his pursuit achar mosares, right, after extraneous things. After extraneous things. V'zeh, right, and every person has their different line of what they would consider to be extraneous, and every person will make a cheshbon nefesh. What do I need and what don't I need? We just sat around the other day with a couple of the educators from Jewish Futures. We were talking about different things to do this summer, and somebody rightly pointed out that you could do things very basically, right? Especially with younger kids, they don't really need very much. And you could have a grand old time and just get a kiddie pool, one of these little things, and have it in your garden on the nice days at least, and they'll have a blast as long as you're present, as long as you're there, as long as you make it fun, as long as you. So what do we need? Sometimes I was thinking as we were talking, sometimes paying for like these fancier things is basically a way so that the parents can find something wildly entertaining for the kids and the parents can zone out. Usually the cheaper things require a lot more hands-on parental presence. But sometimes, especially if you're on a budget, that's okay. That's all, and that's your summer, and it just they'll remember an amazing time with Abba and Mommy or Daddy and Mommy, whatever it is, or Ima or Mom or millions of other names, or Oma, So, and they'll enjoy it. So this is called mosares. We're not looking for mosares, just to live an essential life, So this is pshat, and what the pasuk is referencing, lo yechatzu yemehem. So lo yechatzu yemehem, on a simple level, means David HaMelech says they shouldn't live out half their lives, right? They're destroyers. They're destroying the world. So the Rebbe darshans it in a deeper way. She'ein adam meis v'chatzi tavas biyadai. The Medrash Rabba and Kehelis tells us, and the Medrash continues there, as a result of Mishei Shleimana Rotza Masayim, and that's the continuation of that Medrash over there. I believe it's reviewed on, if I'm not mistaken. She'ein adam meis v'chatzi tavas biyadai means that nobody even leaves this world with half of their desires filled. Right? It's impossible. A person is a desire machine. It doesn't stop. It does not stop, right? It's sometimes like a bit wild. Like if you consider, it's a little bit gross, but bear with me. How much food has passed through our bodies and our respective lifetimes? It's horrifying. Like we are consumers. It's an amazing thing. I wonder if there could be some kind of cheshbon. I mean, it would vary wildly, from person to person. But if you think of it, like, what kind of warehouse would it take to store up all of the food that we've eaten? and it's just this little frail, well, some was small, some was slightly larger, but relatively small bodies, that have processed all of this, and it just like through us, and we're not done. It's not like we're not done. We're just, it's ki'ilu, nothing happened. Like I'm just as hungry this morning as I was yesterday morning, and the day before that, a decade before that, and 2 decades before that. It's an incredible thing. So ein adam meis v'chatzi taavas biyada. It just does not end. V'zeh, so he says that's pshat what David HaMelech was saying. Lo yechetzu yameim doesn't mean let them not live out half their days. It means that too. But he says, Anshe damim u'mirma, people who are bali machloikes, as a result, they're going to be pushed into taavas mamon. And in taavas mamon, this is what it means. Lo yechetzu. She'ema sigin chatzi taavase. This is a reference to taavas mamon. Lo yechetzu yemehem. Let them live in the consciousness and bear the brunt and taste the bitterness of what it means to live in a world of machloikes. What's machloikes fundamentally? Avodah zarah. Meaning they don't live in a world of shleimus. They live in a world of pirud. A world of pirud is loy moyle pirud. You'll never get to the ultimate root. You'll never get to the ultimate goal, because there is no ultimate goal, because things began in pirud and they're going to continue in pirud, and it will be more and more and more and more, as opposed to less and less and less and less. Meaning focus down on the essence, and then beyond that, the essence of that, and what we spoke about shulya lapirda, because shulya means getting to a root, right? Shulya means getting to a place where yeshli kol. Right, but a person who's living in the bechina of pirud doesn't have a kol, because there's no kol, there's no absolute. Everything begins in a realm of multiplicity. Memela, that person is already living in a world of multiplicity. They never have that aspect where they could only have very little, but at the same time have a lot, because they're connected through that little with the all. There is no all. Right? And so they're bali machloikes as a result of this, that they're incapable of living with the consciousness of unity. I'm going to be speaking with Ezra Hashem Wednesday evening. Everybody's encouraged to join and spread the word at Ner Yisrael, giving a shir pre-Tisha B'Av prep. Men and women, welcome to bring your wives and join us. We're going to be speaking very deeply about that there, right? About what it means sinas chinam. Like why is that? What is that? What does it mean to love another? What does it mean to find the essence and to live in a unified consciousness, and to discover that point of wholeness within even very, very broken external appearances, right? That's the time that we're living in now. That's what we need to do, to return to Yerushalayim, to a place of shleimus. I'm not going to give the whole share now, but to find that, it's nothing that you guys don't already know. It's just a good chazar. But these people are living in machlokes, living in pirud. So lo yechetzu. So you're living in Maisareh. She'ein masik chatzi taavas kemuva ala pasuk, like we learned earlier on. Vayigarish mipanecha oyev vayomer hashmid. Right? If there are oyevim, enemies of the tzaddik, so vayomer hashmid. The consequence of that is, if you're living in opposition to the force that is attempting to bring you to wholeness, which is what the tzaddik is. That's what the tzaddik is. The tzaddik will not relent. He's relentless in driving us toward emunah. That's the whole thing, to bring us to emunah, to keep us focused on emes ve'emunah kol zois. Kol zois. Right? Kol. Right? The ability to connect to the all. What Rav Kook, we were speaking about Rav Kook before us. Everywhere in Rav Kook's writings, the all, connecting to the absolute. If you're in opposition to that, so then the natural consequence is lo yechetzu yameim. You're already living in a consciousness of Maisaris, already living in a consciousness of ego, of self, of disconnect from that ultimate reality, from that place of absolute emes, which is absolute achdus, like we learned at the beginning of yesterday's shir.
When Chazal say that this passage refers to doig and
doig, worries.
It's dominant. It's money.
Beautiful. Damim tarti mashma.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chazal say that neither of them lived out 33 and 34. That's right. Right, which is layachtzim, half of 70. Yeah. Amazing. We have to think of Rambam's Frachi Teufel though. But I'll leave that to you.
It's Achi Tiflis, which is Teufel much
right. Foolishness.
Teufel is the mon at the beginning of the Moharan. So it's kind of the opposite of that. The mon is the shefa. That's the rejection of that, I think.
Yafeh, beautiful. Okay, Ayin Shama. That's why we had already looked there earlier on in the lesson. Okay, so here Ad Kan Lashon Rabbeinu Zal. This is the end of Lashon Rabbeinu, and then Reb Nachman from here on recorded a lot of deeper explanations, other aspects and inyanim that were said by Rebbe Nachman at the time that he was giving over this lesson, but this is not literally Rebbe Nachman's own writing. Okay, and that's why at the end it says Va'ani eftach bach, right? Meaning in contradistinction to Anshe Dama Mamerma Layachzi Yemem, which we now understand to be a reference to taavas mamon. David HaMelech concludes Va'ani, but as for me, as for the tzaddik, eftach bach shua hipoch mit taavas mamon. Here's where we're encountering bitachon, right? What it means to be meshuka b'taavas mamon is to lack bitachon. Ki u'ovid kol akum, right? Essentially, because not only is a person, as a result of this, that a person doesn't have bitachon, so then they're running after taavas mamon, right? And then they believe that it's all about their ishtadlos, and the more that they do, the more they'll get, and the more that they, and they always need more and more and more, and not satisfied with what it is that we already have, and learning how to enjoy that, and learning how to live in simcha, because ezu asher samech v'chalkai. But beyond that, it's literally eirev b'teach b'Hashem as a result of kfira. Meaning it's a disconnect from the emunah sa'achtos, ki u oivid kol akum, because that's a person who's living in the realm of riboy and not in the realm of miut, not in the realm of the fullness of emptiness. Right? There's like a certain fullness when there's minimalism. There's a certain fullness there. A person doesn't have lots and lots and lots, but what they do have is clarity. What they do have is peace of mind. What they do have is simcha. And that's like, this is the trade-off of this world. This is what Chazal are all about. I was thinking the other day, I was speaking to somebody. Chazal are really, it's from the standpoint of a this worldly, materialistic perspective. Chazal were like out to lunch with regard to Tainuk and taavas olam hazeh. They didn't know how to appreciate this world. They chose the next world. They chose to give up this world, right? Forgetting the fact that Yaakov Avinu's bracha that he gets from Yitzchak is pretty much identical to Esav's bracha, which is a question that all the Mefarshim are dealing with, right? It's all about physicality. If you read through, which we do 3 times a day, if you read through Kriyashma, and Vayim Shemai Tishmu, it's all physical. It's all physical. But be that as it may, on the surface, it looks like the tzaddikim have relinquished their connection to Olam Hazeh, and what they do have is Olam Haba. And I think that it's a tremendous mistake. I would say on the contrary, I'd say there was no greater connoisseur of physical pleasure than the tzaddikim el-yonim. It's just that they understood the secret of quality over quantity. Right, it's like, imagine a person, our dear friend Yehuda is a whiskey connoisseur, right? He understands whiskey. He taught me a thing or two about it, which I still do. I think sniff 3 times or something like this, right? He taught me all these things, and you chew it and all these things, right? Now, if a person would come who thinks that they're a whiskey connoisseur because they pound alcohol every night, and they're just drinking and drinking and drinking, and they come and see somebody, he's taking just a little bit, he's swirling it, and he's smelling it, and he's tasting it, and he says, what are you doing? You think you understand whiskey? Or let me show you how to chug half a bottle of Smirnoff, and I'll show you how to enjoy it, And you say, you're out of your mind. You don't know the first thing about Tainuk. You don't know your palate is not sensitive. Right, so the tzaddikim are telling us quality over quantity. That's their whole thing. Less is more. And that the quality of what a person can experience when they only experience something once in a while is much, much, much greater than the quantitative orientation of a person that needs that thing every all the time. So Chazal were the greatest connoisseurs of physical pleasure. They knew, and on the contrary, the way that they enjoyed physicality, the biggest hedonist would never experience. Because the hedonist thinks that more is more, right? The hedonist thinks that the more often that I'll have, whatever it is, so then the more pleasure I'll get. And the tzaddikim say, you're cheit shabayla. It's like a little child. You're not thinking. You're not thinking, you're in lust. You're in taiva. The tzaddikim weren't in taiva. That's the difference. So they didn't feel the sense of urgency. They'll have, and when they have, the quality of what they experience will be far, far greater. That's the orientation of Chazal, is always quality over quantity. Lama? Because Chazal are an extension of Torah Shebiksav. Torah Shabbat is the repository of emunas hayichud. Quantity is the bechina of avodah zarah, because it's the result of a split worldview. As a result of a split worldview, the more you can have, the better. The more gods, the better. Right? The more powers you can have on your side, the better. It's this constant frenetic search for more and more and more and more, because what a person has is not yet the absolute, because this world is a world of multiplicity. This world is a world of a pantheon of different gods. Mamela, if a person has the rain god, they still need to secure the sun god, and if a person has the sun god, they need the grain god. And this is how it goes. To a yid, it's punt fakir. To a yid, Hashem is most present when there's not a huge degree of quantity, but what there is the essence that peeks out. Meitzitz menacharakim, heicharakim. From all of the different cracks of existence, and a person can sense that singular light that's shining through. So then a person says, even if I don't have everything, but yesh li kol. Even if I don't have a lot, yesh li kol. Like we said in the beginning of this year in passing, imani kan, hakol kan. This is a monotheistic worldview, quality over quantity. So this is what David Melech says. I don't need ki ameshuka b'taavas mamon. If you're in taavas mamon, ena b'teach b'Hashem. Ki hu oiver kol akum. It is literally a derivative of oiv de kachav mazalis. It isn't just metaphorically he worships money. It's much deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. It's a disconnect from the fundamental consciousness of what it means to be a monotheist, of what it means to connect to the singular light of quality that's supposed to manifest within whatever we do have, even if what we have is only ever a chelik. Because ein adam meis v'chatzi taavas biyadai. Ach, David HaMelech says, "Va'ani kana kol kan eftach bach." I trust in you. That whatever I do in my ishtadlus and whatever parnasa comes as a result of that, that's parnasasi. That's imanikan. And whatever chelik I have, I am besimcha with it. These two things can be true at once. You can both be a person who's doing further ishtadlus so that you can increase your physical stature, and that's okay. And you can, at the very same time, be besimcha with what you and what each of us have. Ki'ilu, I didn't have to do any more ishtadlus in my life, because if all I ever had is what I currently have, I'm happy. Those two things could be true at once. We said earlier, and I want to underscore this idea, what Rebbe Nachman is not saying is that a person needs to do, less ishtadlus, stop doing as much as we're doing, not try to strive. If a person has sagas and gashmias for holy reasons, wants to get more tzedakah, wants to be able to expand his house that he could have more guests, wants to, be able to eventually, host his children when they come with their wives, or spouses and their children. And these are okay things. A person wants to be able to, etc. Fill in the blank. That's fine. What Rebbe Nachman is talking about is that there isn't the taavas shabai. The taavas shabai, which begins to impact a person's whole mood, begin to impact a person's whole life, and what they feel about losing a deal. Their whole world doesn't crumble. That we're speaking about, like Mendy asked yesterday, what's Rebbe Nachman saying? It's very difficult because it's not that kind of safer. I cannot put a finger on it. The Rebbe is describing a multifaceted diamond of a spirit that's called bitachon. It's not like, okay, what does it look like? It's a general hashra'ah, that needs to settle as a result of learning many, many different angles and facets and aspects of Mamar Chazal and Psukim. And from all of it, the spirit of bitachon begins to flourish. We understand what this is and what it isn't, and how to stay away from what it isn't, and to have more of it in our lives. So, and I shall not be meshuka and sunk down into that inyan of taavas mamon. And I think that's such a beautiful lashon that Rebbe Nachman uses. Ve'eya sameach bechalki. Eya is future oriented, right? I will be. right? So it's funny to talk about Sameach Bechelkai from the standpoint of a person who's future-oriented, but I think that's the point. He's saying, even when I'm in the consciousness of Eya, like I am thinking about Da'ana Zaman L'Mahavi, like we said in Torah Vav, Eya means, Ekia, there, because it's speaking about Hashem's name, right? Ana Zaman L'Mahavi, I am ready to become, I'm looking for the futuristic aspect of what I could be, what I could have, how I could develop and evolve and produce and have more. And even there, even in that consciousness, Eya Sameach Bechelki. Right, even in that consciousness, I will be besimcha with what I already have. That's all that I need. Al-Kain, therefore, says Rebbe Nachman, Al-Kain, Eila Meshukayim b'mamon. Those who are meshuka, who are immersed within money, are entrenched within money. Kol ma sheyesh le'ashir is yoser, yesh le'dagas va'atzus amar shchar b'yoser. The more wealth they have, the sadder, the more worried, dayeg, daga, right? The more ba'atzus, the more b'mar shchar they are. Like the pasuk that we mentioned earlier in the lesson, that person's parnasa is an aspect of itzavin techalna. A person will have it, but it will come with a great degree of anxiety and a great degree of worry and sadness. In the aspect of darkened countenance, misa, death, the more wealth they have, they'll have more worry, because that's the consciousness of that person. Like we said in the story of the Chacham and the Tam, the Chacham gets sadder and sadder. The more that he has, the sadder he is. And that's why the Mishnah says, the more property a person has, we've mentioned this in prior shiurim, because obviously he's going to be mar b'daiga. Because again, it isn't just the aspect of having more nechasim, it's mar b'nechasim, meaning it's rooted in the realm of riboy. The realm of riboy is a realm of anxiety, because then there's good gods and bad gods. I need to appease the bad gods, and I need to get more good gods, right? Meaning chas v'shalom, that's the consciousness of polytheism, right? Of having more, and that things are rooted chas v'shalom in a realm of riboy. So that's mar b'nechasim. But in a realm of miot, then whatever I have is mamish already saturated with the presence of the infinite, and I can taste therein infinite quality even if I have limited quantity. And that which I don't have is weiter from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning even what I don't have, the things that don't work out, the opportunities that that I thought I would have and then nothing, and they fizzled out, which has happened for me millions of times, and then parnasa comes from somewhere else. All of us know this, right? This is that famous thing with the fish, right? Where the guy is fishing and he's sitting on the pier and he has a bucket, and he can't catch anything, and from behind him the fish are jumping into the bucket from the other side, as he's fishing on one side, right? A friend of mine, Moshe Milstein, is like a big artist, and he did this like really beautiful rendering of it, and he posts on his status, like people buy them and put them put them in their office, to remind them of this. Like whenever they're sitting and doing their work, they should look up and realize parnasa won't always come from the place where you think it comes from, right? But still, a person who's in consciousness, Blinader will post the link to his website on the chat, so everybody can purchase for their homes, for their offices. When a person is in the consciousness of miyot nechasim, right? Miyot daiga, the opposite of marbe nechasim, which is it's relating to the realm of polytheism, right? Relating to the realm of multiplicity. When a person's in the opposite of that, then the deals that don't work out is also kol mada avirachman letav of it. It's also good. It's also from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's also the aspect of gamzu l'tova, right? Even this gamzu l'tova. And therein also lies the fullness of Hashem's presence. And it's not different from the deal that did work out last week and the deal that Be'ez Hashem will work out next week. It's the same thing. But mar b'nechasim, if a person engages with the concept of nechasim, with the consciousness of a riboy, so then mar b'daiga. Polytheism leads to daiga, period, right? That's mar b'daiga. If you live in a bifurcated, multiplice universe, so then it's daiga. Ki bevadei hu mar b'daiga v'atzos al yedei riboy hanachasim ashiras. Certainly the person is going to live with sadness and worry because of the more nechasim he has. Because it's beitavin techalna. So the more you eat, right, in that way, the more sadness. So the more property one has, the more ba'atzvos one is. That means that if a person engages with it in an improper way, that money and ashiras can literally kill a person, can literally eat away a person's life. And this is a pretty important line. Ki ein davar shemafsed achiyas k'mayadaga va'atzlus. There is nothing that wastes away a person's life force, their vitality, like worry and depressive sadness. Ki yadua l'chachmei arayfim, like the doctors affirm. V'hamamon v'ashiras hu marbe daga va'atzlus, and money and ashiras, like we said, it increases the sadness. Therefore, it'll also waste away a person's life. That's why we said a person who's stuck in ayin anpin chashuch is misa, because it's literally mechal yamav as a result of causing atzvus and daiga in a person's life. Atzvus and daiga are mechal yamav shaladam. Memela, a person who's disconnected from the ar pnei melech chayim is connected to the ayin anpin chashuchim, which are connected to both idol worship, right, the 70 nations of the world, as well as death. Alkeinu mafsidu mechali chayav ki umekusher b'panav d'sitra achra elekim acherim elehim acherim. Interesting. It says elekim acherim choshech shu b'chinas misa hefech arpanim elachayim. He's disconnected from life. He's disconnected from light. He's disconnected from the panim de kedusha, and he's connected to the panim de sitra achra elehim acherim choshech, darkness, which is the aspect of misa. V'alkein mamon meimis aisai, and that's why money literally it kills him. Like, this person died. What did he die of? Parnasa. He died of money. He died of ashiras, which means he died of worry. He died of stress. Because this is all taavas mamon. So over there it says, and then the snake was cursed. And what was the snake told? Which literally means he will eat dust all the days of your life. Now, if you think of it just on the simple level, right, what's the reference? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking to the Nachash. What does that have to do with me? Right, so the answer is that all of us have a little bit of the Nachash inside of us, right? They died of Nachash, right? Ba Nachash al Chaba v'hita ba Zuama. There's Zuama there that the Torah is meant to counteract, like the Gemara in Shabbos tells us that Kisha'amdu Yisrael, right? Klal Yisrael stood at our Sinai, Paska Zuamasam. The Zuama, which Zuama? The Zuama Nachash ceased, right? It came back when? When did it come back? Huh? By the Egel, which is idol worship, right? Because that is what the Nachash is. The Nachash is this force that is outside of a person, right? That serves as sort of like a foil, kiviyachol, to the Ein Sof, right? Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't eat from the tree, comes the Nachash and says, eat from the tree. Shtei Reshuyos, essentially. And they served the Nachash. And therefore, idol worship did the same thing for the Klal, what listening to the Nachash did for the Prat, which is Adam and Chava. Right, and to the Klal, the Zuamas HaNachash came back to the whole nation as a result of their serving the Egel HaZahav, and it isn't for nothing that it was the Egel HaZahav, because there was a Bechina taavas mamon there, right? Even though paradoxically they all gave their money to it, right? Which is in a certain sense a tikkun for taavas mamon, but ultimately it was this that they worshipped gold collectively. Interesting comment on even the idolatry of socialism. Like even when the community contributes all their wealth to build an Egel HaZahav. Interesting. Capitalism is when everybody has their own. Okay, be that as it may, there is an aspect there of Zahav and the serving of it, right? And there the Zuama comes back. The Nachash means the influence of the Nachash in all of us. All of us have that aspect of the Nachash.
The master of prayer.
Huh?
The master of prayer, the place where the
wealth. Yeah, we mentioned that in an earlier shir. That's right. Yes, that's literally their gods, right? That's literally what they worship, the mountain of wealth, right? The people who live there. So this pasuk is actually referring to all of us. To the extent that a person has the consciousness of the Nachash, so then even what you'll eat will be afar. Right? This is a little bit of a deeper level of the meaning. Even if you're not eating afar, it'll be like afar. Why? Because nothing will ever be enough. And so it will never be satisfied. And that's another reference to Misha Yishlem Mana Rotzim Asayim Ein Adam Meis V'Chatzi Taavas Biyadai. As a result of this, that Afar Teichel Kayim Echecha. So how can you be satisfied if whatever you eat is dust? You're still hungry. You weren't satisfied. And that's a little bit of a deeper understanding. But the Rebbe says no, you have to read it much deeper. Afar is a bechinas hamamon. Afar is an aspect of money. Kamashikaso, as the pasuk says, Afar is zahav loy. And golden dust belongs to him. Afar is zahav. Afar is in the context of zav, is an aspect of money. So says the Rebbe, no, we're reading it wrong. Not afar toicha kol yemei chayecha, you shall eat dust. No, if dust is a reference to money, then afar toicha kol yemei chayecha, the money will eat up the days of your life. Not that you shall eat dust. Afar toichal, the afar will eat you up. Kol yemei chayecha. Unbelievable curse. Unbelievable. Afar is a bechinas hamamon, kameshu katzva afar zavloi. Hainu shahamamon v'hashiras. This means that the money and the hashiras are bechinas afar, which, like we just mentioned, is an aspect of afar. Toichal kol yemei chayecha will eat up the days of chas v'shalom, a person's life. Ki hamamon yocheles v'mechala kol yemei chayev shal adam k'niskala, because the money will eat up the days of a person's life, as we mentioned earlier. Ki afar bechinas atzvos, because afar is the aspect of atzvos bechinas taavas mamon, which is an aspect of the taavas mamon. Now we're going to make reference to a number of things that I mentioned by the Tikkunei Zohar. I'm going to just read it to you because you don't have it inside. I'm going to read it over here from this very, very excellent Pirush on the Likutei. It's called Pirush Oita R, and it looks like this. It's 4 volumes. It came out pretty recently. A tremendous Talmud Chacham and Mekubal, the son of Rebbe, I think his name was Rebbe Atiyah, and this Mechaber's name. No, I'm sorry. This is the son of Rebbe Mordechai Atiyah. Is a great Mekubal Rosh Yeshiva, I think, of Shar Shamayim, I think. One of the Rosh Yeshiva of that yeshiva, I think. Shar Shamayim or what one? I'm sorry. What was the yeshiva of the Shalom Sharabi? Is that Shar Shamayim?
From Rav Ezra Atiyah?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is his son. He can be a tremendous Breslov Chassid. What's that?
Beit Kel Yeshiva.
Yeah, Betel. Yes. I think it's Yeshiva's Betel. I think. Okay, this is Rebbe Atiyah. Unbelievable. I mean, what he did is just unbelievable. There's no Pirush like this. He really gets into it. So anyway, so he brings over here the full Zohar Kadosh. I'm just going to read it to you in the Targum. Okay, he brings it in the Aramaic. We'll read it in the Targum, and the Targum says like this. Okay, so just listen for a second. Tchol zu. This demon that's called Lamed Yud Taf. Tchol is the spleen. Okay, that's the place where we learned metaphysically the black bile, or it is rooted in that place of the spleen, the Mara Shchira, sadness, darkness, bitterness. And this is this feminine demon, right? This force, Lamed Yud Taf, that the Rebbe says elsewhere is called Yilala, right? Yilala is wailing. All kinds of wailing comes from that place. The Rebbe says sad songs that are bitter songs, depressive songs, comes from that place. Yilala, mourning, moaning, from this place. Ima Shala Eirev Ram. She's called the mother of the mixed multitude. Schoik Haksil. It's also called the laughter of the fool, right? Which is bitter laughter. It's stoic, sarcastic laughter. It's not a laughter of happiness. It's a laughter of bitterness. It's a laughter of despair. Mizik sil, and the Zohar Kadosh continues. This is from Tikkunei Zohar. Ze el acher samach mem. The schoik haksil, but the ksil is samach mem. The schoik haksil is lamed yod taf. Okay, samach mem alav lamed. By eirev rav heim benah. You know what eirev rav are? And again, I try to be very careful with this Indian of the eirev rav. My father-in-law actually just reached out to me earlier in this week about it. Because the Zohar Kadosh in many places mentions the eirev rav, but it doesn't give any kind of identifying characteristics. Like it's a dangerous thing because then it gets bandied about. So the Zionists think that the The religious Zionists think that Nitei Karta are eirev Rav. The Nitei Karta think that the Tziyanim are eirev Rav. This one thinks that one's eirev Rav. And anybody who's Misnagit Rebbe Nachman is eirev Rav, and anybody who is Breslover Chas v'Shalom. So it's just this terminology that there's no real usage for. But it is a concept that exists. There is this concept that in Klal Yisrael there are mamish demonic forces that are working to destroy it. And to me, the only reason the Zohar Kadosh says that there's a thing called eirev Rav is that I have to be choshesh that maybe I'm eirev Rav. That's what it means to me. But I can't point a finger at anybody else and say they're eirev Rav. Sometimes I feel like I'm eirev Rav. When you read some of the sources in the Zohar Kadosh, maybe it's me. And I think that's what the Zohar Kadosh wants. I don't think it's for the purpose of now identifying who the eirev Rav are and writing pashkevilim about it. I think it's supposed to be for each of us individually to always have that niggling suspicion in the back of their head, like maybe it's me. Oh my gosh, like maybe that to me that's the only value of. Okay, anyway, so here it says ima shel eirev Rav. What is the eirev Rav? Says the Zohar Kadosh over here in Tikkunim. You know what it means? Eirev Rav is the birth. The birth of the ksil. Wedding to the schoik aksil. That's eirev Rav. Eirev Rav means the cynic. Eirev Rav means the one who is fortifying hopelessness and trying to project a message that all is lost. There is no hope. There is no that. According to the Zohar, that's eirev Rav. Schoik aksil mizak sil elacher samach mem. Eirev Rav heim baneha shema eiravim im Yisrael, which are mixed in to the Yisrael, which is obviously the hepech of that, which is hope and optimism and vision and elevation and connection to that real realm of goodness and sweetness. Risham Gemur, and this is Risham Gemur. Utchal hu lamed yotaf. This spleen is this aspect of the feminine female demon. Me'eras Hashem bebeis Rasha. This is the curse. God is cursed in the house of the Rasha. The askara latinoika she'em rashayim, and this is askara. This is the terrible sickness, throat illness, right? That it affects and attacks children. And then the Zohar says this strange thing in context. It entertains them with wealth in this world, and then it comes and kills them. Why are they called children? Because they're like children, they have no intellect to save themselves from her. But the leiv maven, the heart that understands, will save itself from her. Shesham tzadik. That's the realm of tzadik. The seid adavar toiv lufnei elikim yimalit mimena. The one who is toiv before Hashem will escape from the trap. But the cheit will become trapped by it. And ein toiv el tzadik, and tzadik is leiv maven, and the tzadik understands, as opposed to the ksil, that the ksil doesn't understand, falls into the schoik ksil, which. And that's the important line. Will give them a lot of pleasure of oisher in this world, but at the end it results in death. Okay, that's the piece from the Zohar Kadosh that he's referring to. I think already you can hear a lot of the different elements that we've been learning in this lesson. And Erev Nasan runs through them. Tchal da Lilis. Tchal is the aspect of Lilis, Ima de Eirev Rav, which is the Ima de Eirev Rav, like we said, Schoik Ksil, Man Ksil. Who's the Ksil? Da El Acher, Samach Mem, like we learned, Ain Shami Iu Askar L'Ravia. And this is the Askara for the children, di'inun chayavaya, right, which is what kills them. It will give them wealth and. Is someone ringing? Bell? Oh, it's from outside. Okay. It will give them joy and pleasure with wealth in this world, and then kills them. So says the Rebbe, we said that those who are mishuka in taavas mamon is an aspect of be'itzav in techalna, right? They're eating with sadness. Their whole life is eaten up as a result of the afar, as a result of the afar zav, as the result of the egel hazav, as the result of the nachash, of the money. Shebechinas tchal, which is an aspect of the spleen, Shebechinas atzvus amar shchayra v'riba daigas, which is a place of the black bile, which is a place of the proliferation of worry. And therefore they are connected to this place of the sitra acher el acher. This is a result of that place of the ima de eirev rav. Right, and by the way, that's what eirev rav is. Eirev rav is polytheism. Eirev rav means that they weren't real converts, right? There was no culture as polytheistic, right, as the Egyptians. Millions and millions of different gods, different aspects of different things, this god and that god. And the eirev rav, you remember, right, Basafsov was the eirev rav that came out from Mitzrayim. But they were an eirev rav. They were always many. They were not ki'ish echad v'leiv echad, which is Klal Yisrael's monotheistic conception, and as a result, they're able to be mekabel the Torah, right, which wipes away the zuhama of the Nachash. Eirev rav, it's a many, it's a manyness. Shekol ze b'chinas hatchal, schoi kaksil el acher. And that's why it says later in that piece, later on, katilas, it kills them. Says, so how do you understand that? Says the Rebbe, ki bevadai mamon shebechinas tchol atzvus, right? Money, that's an aspect of the tchol mara shchayra atzvus, literally hayregas haysam, literally kills them. Ki mamon shaloi bechinas misa, because the money is the aspect of misa and penchashuch and atzvus is an aspect of the dark face, the hepech of our penei melachayim, the opposite of that panim the kedushas, panim the sitra acher is a darkened face. Atzvus kenis kalav zema shekasel le'el, and that's what we said earlier on, matzah emaitza, right? Which one is it? When it comes to parnasa, is it matzah isha matzah toiv, or is it chas v'shalom matzah mar mimavas as isha mar, because there's no bris melach olam, right, that's able to sweeten the bitterness of the world, like the Zohar Kadosh had told us. Taavas mamon b'chinas maitza ani mar mimavas as isha. It is more bitter than death. Kikei mevar shama tikkunim maitza ani mar mimavas as isha datchal. The Zohar Kadosh later says that on this pasuk mar mimavas isha, this is a reference to tchal. It is a reference to the mara shchayra. It is a reference to the spleen. It is a reference to the atzvus, to the daiga. That's a result of the mara shchayra, of the parnasa. That's a bechina of parnasa the sitra achra. Parnasa the kedusha hu bechinas matzah isha matzah toiv. That's the opposite of that. Hu bechinas tzaddik. Right, in Taival Tzadik, Imr Tzadik Kitayv. Ki an Tzadik ha'emes nitzal mizah, that Tzadik saves himself from this. Ki ein mamon mazikloi. He'll have money. That's the point. He'll have money. He'll have money. But it's not mazikin. Ki alav nemar toiv lifnei elikim yimalit mimena toiv. Kama shekasav shama tikkunim, right? Like the Zohar Kadosh had said later, the Leiv Maven, that Tzadik is able to save himself as a result of Imr Tzadik Toiv. Toiv lifnei elikim yimalit mimena. And then the tikkun continues, Amai iskri Ravia. Why were they? What do you mean they're called children? Why children? But begin the la isbuhoin das l'shteis v'minei, because they don't have the intellect necessary to save themselves from it. Right, the Taman Sadik. The Leiv Maven, the one with an understanding heart, is able to save himself or herself from this, because this is the place of the Tzaddik. V'raza de Mila, Toiv l'fnei halekim yimalik mimena. But the cheit is stuck. Kitzar Chochmah v'das gadol hazeh, because it takes tremendous wisdom to be so simple to live like the Tam. People think the Tam is a fool. The Tam is not a fool. The Tam is a tremendous bardas, an enormous bardas. He's way more of a Chacham than the Chacham. Right? The Chacham and the Tam. The Chacham is the fool. The Tam is the wise one. Because Rebbe Nachman says in Likutei Moharan Tinyana, Torah Mem Dalid, the Rebbe says, Ki ha-Chochmah ha-Geulah shebachol ha-Chochmas. What is the greatest Chochmah of all the Chochmas? The greatest of all wisdoms is Livli Lias Chacham Klal. Is to relinquish all wisdom, to relinquish all sophistication, and to live simply. There's no greater wisdom than that. There's no greater. That is the greatest wisdom of all. To live simply. To live simply.
Because then all you would see is Hashem, gracious, Chochmah, Yiras Hashem. It's just one. Wouldn't be anything else.
And then imani kan,
My eirev Rav.
imani kan hakol kan, right? And then whatever you did have, you'd mamish have. Like the Tam has one little slice of bread, and he tastes steak, and he tastes, delicious desserts and everything in that one piece of bread of Bechin of the man, because it came mamish lechem abir machalish. It came directly from Hashem. Ki roiv ha'olam nilkadu b'zeh, because says Rebbe Nachman, it takes huge, right? Again, ki tzarach chochmah v'das gadol hazeh shalei yazikwa mamon. That mamon shouldn't damage a person. Shalei yichali yimei chayv ki roiv ha'olam nilkadu b'zeh. That most of the world is stuck in this. Money makes the world go round, right? Taavas mamon v'hamamon hareges v'memisasam. It's crazy because we are under the assumption that the more we have, the greater the quality of our life is going to be, and it's literally punkt v'karet. It is literally the opposite. Is that as a result of that being our consciousness, the more we have, the sadder we are. The more we have, the more miserable we are. So if we're actually after happiness, we should probably seek joy, because seeking happiness, seeking pleasure, leads to the opposite. How are we going to get free from this? There's only one way: the das of the tzaddik emes. Shenemar alav toiv lufnei elikim yimalim imena v'chulu kanes galel ashrei loy. Fortunate is he, fortunate are we, fortunate are those who are connected. Ayin shama tikkunim. See over there in the tikkunim tear flies, and you'll see wonders. Eich ata, how right now shepasach Rabbeinu Zchon Levracha seinenu. Now that Rebbe Nachman opened up our eyes to be able to understand the sugya, because how many of us reading that passage from Tikkunei Zohar would have understood everything from there? Right? It's so terse, it's so packaged. But Rebbe Nachman unveiled our eyes. The Geulah lanu as ha'akdamas, ha'chadashes, ha'neflais, and revealed these brand new, introductory teachings, which is Rebbe Nachman said the whole Likutei is only hakdamas. He said every Torah is just a hakdama to call it Torah Kula. Right now that he gave you the hakdama, now you got to learn everything else. You can understand much more. Hamavarim le'el b'atar hazais, which are revealed earlier in this teaching. Ata. So now, right? Only now. Mevaran heitiv divrei hatikunim anal. Now we can understand the words of the Tikkunim, the Tikkunei Zohar. Ki atam v'arim sham kol divrei Rabbeinu Hanal, because now we can see all the words of Rebbe Nachman. Re'ei v'havein v'chakam, see and understand, and v'chakam, bina and Chochmah, ayin sham b'tikkun, ayin haniskale el mashakasu sham, and then he continues over there in the tikkunim, and he says, im zacha v'chulu eirev, im lav kenegda. He makes reference to the aspect of the isha, which the isha in this context is parnasa. Alei itmar, and he literally quotes over there the words, umaytza nimar mimaves es ha'isha v'dat chol shabsai. This is Chol, which is the place of Shabsai, which is a place of Marash Chayra, the place of the eirev, right? Hainu b'chinas atzvus Marash Chayra b'chinas Chol Shabsai pasya ukma ki yadua, that place of darkened shards, fragments, right? Ki yadua, as is known. Eizer da shchinta. And Eizer is when a person's connected to Malchus to Kedushas, the Shechina. So whatever little bit you have in this world, you see everything. And when a person drinks one glass of water, he's drinking mamish all the water in the world. And when a person eats whatever they eat, but they taste in it all the most incredible pleasures. Dashchinta alei itmar matza isha matza toiv v'yafik ratzin me'Hashem beginda have imri mara masnisin matza emaitza. This in truth is what the Mara Masnisa, what the Mishnah was referring to when the question is asked when a person gets married, Matzah Eimaitza. It was far deeper than simply asking this, I think a very base level question, how's it, what's your wife like? Is she Matzah Eimaitza? Chazal don't talk that way. Well, what's the Indian over there? That always bothered me, this Maimer Chazal. Says the Zohar, that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about a person's wife, Matzah Eimaitza. Ki'ilu, like Ki'ilu, you can't ask the same question about every husband to 20 times more. Husbands could be far worse for wives than wives could be for husbands. Chas v'shalom. That's not what we're asking. It's about parnasa. And the Zohar says, Ubeginda have amri Mara Masnisin. This is what the Mara Masnisin we're talking about, Matzah Eimaitza, because only in the reference of the prior text that refers to wealth and refers to killing and refers to tchal and marashchayra and daiga and atzvus, then in that context you could understand matzah emaitza, the aspect of ezer or chas v'shalom kenegdai. Ayin sham heitav havin, see over there well and you'll understand. V'ser shekol devra Rabbeinu zal miva'aran ato v'tikun Gimmel haniskal el bar heitev. Now you could really understand the words of the Tikkunei Zohar only as a result of this later iteration, which I believe, you're welcome to take or leave, but I believe with all my heart and soul that a later iteration of Rabbi Shimon's neshama is Rebbe Nachman. That's why people, before they could get to Uman, they made a big kibbutz in Meron. It's considered to be mamish, an extension. Rebbe Nachman is an extension of that Torah. So he came back to reveal a further iteration of this Torah, and now you can understand the Tikkunei Zohar in a much deeper way. Ashreinu matay chalkeinu v'azdus Hashem. It's taken us a long time, but we'll jump back into Torah Chof Gimmel on Monday. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. Thank you for another amazing week of learning together.
Someone was telling me last night that Rebbe Kivak has I think either 430 pages, I think, on what's called Chuchazu. 430 pages, just explaining how Rebbe Nachman and Rishon Baruch are one.
Wow. Is that published? Is it?
Yo